before you come to Next.js. And we know that React itself is a JavaScript library that is used to develop a user or a client-side front-end UIs, user interfaces. But then Next.js allows us to do something even extensive. Okay, aside it having a client-side rendering, it also have the server-side rendering as well. You can build a back-end on top of Next.js, okay, just as you have the front end, which is being powered by React. So it is more extensive. Okay, it's a whole framework on its own, which has most of the components that you need to build a fully fledged web design, both the back end and the front end as well. So that is how powerful Next.js is. So you'll see that the moment we start, most of the things are going to be similar, but then there are minor things that are slightly, the implementations are slightly different from React. But then once you know about React, everything should be easy for you. So first of all, when you go to the official documentation of Next.js, let me pull this up. So when you come to your browser, you just search for Next.js, okay, and it's being powered by Vessel. Okay, so when you click that, the first thing you see here is what a Next.js is. It says it's a React framework, so it means that it has React embedded in it. It's a React framework for the web. Okay, and then it says used by some of the world's largest companies, Next.js enables you to create high quality web applications with the power of React components. So when you click on get started, we have the intro, and then we have the different components, different areas that you can actually work on in the Next.js application. It can be used to build a full stack web application. So full stack means that it comes with this in the front end and the back end. The back end is the part that is being driven by the databases and then the models. Okay, the models are capable of actually executing commands on the database to actually retrieve the respective data that the user is trying to access. Mostly we call those things APIs, okay, application programming interfaces, where a user had to channel through and a module or a channel in order to retrieve data from another end, which is mostly the back end or the database. So that is what the framework is all about. And then on top of it, you have the user interface that is also interfacing with the user to make interaction with the back end as well. So first of all, we want to look at the yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let us look at some of the main features of Next.js. Some of the main Next.js features include routing. Okay, routing is how you move from, it says, a file system based router built on top of server components that supports layouts, nested routing, loading states, error handling, and more. So you know, in React we have to import certain libraries in order to do the routing, okay, the React router DOM, in order to be able to do routing. But then the Next.js is using the file system, like the way you create folders on your computer. So when you create a folder, it requires or asks you to put certain things in the folder. So if it is something that is going to be shared among other components, okay, you just define that in the main root folder as layout.js, and then each default page of any folder is a page. Okay, you say page.js. We'll be looking at the implementation of all this in the NextJS program we are doing. And then we also have the rendering. It says that the rendering has what is a client-side and server-side rendering with client and server components. So we have the client components and then the server components. Now by default, NextJS comes with the server components. Okay, so if you want to force it to become a client component, you have to, at the top there, you put it in a quote and say use client. Use client. You can also say use server. Okay, use server, but then because it's the default, you only specify the use client. Further, optimized with static and dynamic rendering on the server with NextJS. So that is how it's being rendered. So we have the static pages, and then we also have the static rendering, and then we have the dynamic rendering. Okay, when the static comes in, it means that the thing is fixed. It means that you generate the pages that you are going to host prior to hosting, but then when you come to dynamic content, it means that when you host the page, most of the content of the page, okay, the framework is going to come from a database. So it's dynamically generated based on the user's input, okay, or your customer's input. So for instance, if you are, it's just like the way you visit a banking portal, right, and then to feed in your details, or maybe you go to an e-commerce site. Now sometimes the things you see on a page, let me use the banking sector, or maybe a school's dashboard. So when you create an account with a certain profile, or even possible, let me use a social media platform like the Facebook. Now when you create an account with Facebook, your interface, the page you see, most of the things will be common, but there are other things that would also be different from another person's own, like the way the themes, the background layout you use, the way you arrange certain things, the sort of images you bring in. They are custom, they are specific to you, the person using it, right? You customize this, make some few changes to the interface, but then another person may have a different layout, a different structure altogether. So in that way, that page is not static. It's not static in the sense that with static pages you can't make changes. Once it has been generated and you are both calling it, you all see the same thing. But then if it is dynamic, that's when the things change, or certain settings are different or differ from one person to the other. That is a dynamic content. It means the things are not fixed. They come based on the way the person is adapting to it or changing it. Okay, then we also have a simplified data fetching in React. So simplified data fetching with async await in server components, and an extended fetch API for request memoization, data caching, and revalidation. Okay, so like we talked about, it having an inbuilt API system that you can use it to construct endpoints. We call them endpoints, like the get, the post, the delete, and the put or patch for update. Okay, these endpoints are there, so you can also use the server component to actually interface with the database to retrieve data from a database or even from an external source, and then process this data and then display it at the UI, okay, the front end side of the client side of the application. You can also do some CSS styling like we did in React. You can also style it. You can use other CSS styling, the custom CSS style that we normally use, or you can use Tailwind CSS. You can use the Bootstrap CSS. Okay, you also have I think pure CSS and so on. There are different types of CSS that libraries you can use. And then we also have the Ant, the Swiper the libraries. You can also use the Ant this thing library. You can also use to just integrate into your application and then utilize some of the components they have pre-created in their this library. So it becomes easy for you to just pick certain components without styling it from scratch. Okay, then we also have the optimization, where you have images, fonts, scripts optimizations to improve your application's core web vitals and user experience. So it has even the image they have here, unlike the normal HTML image component. This NextJS have an inbuilt special component for images. That is what they are referencing here. So that image component is, I would say, it is asynchronous, or it is lazy loaded, right? Lazy loaded means that it is designed in a way that if the page, your page is being called from a web server and the page is being displayed in your browser, the section of the page that is showing, okay, it is that the images or the files it has to display at that particular moment that it loads, and then it holds on with the ones that are not yet in view. So if you have a tall list of let's say like the GG app or the Tonaton app, you have tons of images. When you scroll down, right, now it will lazy load those images, in the sense that by default we have the eager and then lazy. So eager means that even if that section of the page at the bottom is not in view, still continue to load it. Mostly the user experience is not all that great, because it throws a lot of pressure on the bandwidth, on the processing of the data that is being called to your browser. And because probably your internet is not so fast to load these things very fast, you see a break in some of your images during the processing of the data from the web server. But then if it is being lazy loaded, what will happen is that the images that are not yet in view, you have not scrolled to that section, will not be downloaded yet. Even though they are on the same page, they will not be downloaded yet. The ones that are in view are the only ones it will download. So it speeds the process, because it has to download very few images, because they are the ones that are going to show immediately. So it downloads very few images, so it is faster. So within a short time the images are in view, you can see them. And then as you scroll the page, then the other images are downloaded per your as to where you've gotten to on the page. Okay, so in that way these images are loaded progressively. Yes, let me use the word progressively, without hindering the progress of the ones that are in view with the ones that are not in view. Okay, because something may be at the down there, it's not yet in view, but it has been downloaded already. But then the ones that are in view are still loading, which is not a good user experience. So that is an optimization with NextJS. So we'll be using its image component instead of using our own HTML custom img image tag that we normally use. And then you can also improve with TypeScript, okay, to be type safe. Okay, we did not do